Alrighty, so welcome back to the late edition of the review for Matchweek number 31. And like I said in my review of the free Sunday game that happened earlier, I'm doing this late because of the fact that, I was relatively busy on Sunday and that, I can only do this review on Monday after I've just got off work. And it's also kind of a tired edition of the review because, anytime when I do a review after I did my full shift, there's going to be some fatigueness. But one thing that is not fatigue is definitely looking at these games and looking at the upcoming scenarios that we could have in Decision Day. Because, my God, if the standings is going to continue for these next couple of weeks and we head to Decision Day, I've said before, Decision Day could be the wildest we have ever seen in MLS history, and I'm not exaggerating in a way that it could be the case. We could see both conferences where there could be some playoff spot that could be up for grabs, and even home field advantage, and even maybe the Supporters' Shield race that could be decided on the final day of the season. But that being said, let us actually get into the first of 11 games that happened on Saturday. And we start off with the first game of this 14-game action. That is the New York Derby between NYCFC versus the New York Red Bulls. So, for NYCFC, after winning the Campeones Cup, we talked about before how, heading into the weekend's action, they maybe suffer a bit of a letdown because anytime when you, of course, win a trophy and you have to go at it again on the weekend and on such a short rest, you can definitely have that letdown and that cup hangover. But the good news for NYCFC is that they get to play against the New York Red Bulls. And if there is a time where you need to, of course, trying to ignore the cup hangover, it's definitely against your rival because you're going to be up for it. It's safe to say that NYCFC was definitely up for it in this one against the New York Red Bulls because they literally scored just 1 minute into this game. Like, only 42 seconds in, Alexander Callens scoring from Rodriguez and Morales to give a 1-0 in favor of NYCFC. And this is the second time that Alexander Callens have scored inside 5 minutes. We saw him score inside 5 minutes against Atlas in the Campeones Cup. And that it just feels like, he is a guy that a lot of people don't talk about how he is just a big game player. Like, he always tends to be there in the big moment, and that here in the New York Derby, he once again score a crucial goal to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. And in fact, I think NYCFC themselves, they were on the front foot. Like the Red Bulls, they were still shocked with the way that after giving up a goal just 1 minute into this game, though there was a close moment in the 12th minute when Sean Johnson spilled a cross that was coming in, which Lucanias was trying to tap it into the empty net, but instead it was clear off the line by Callens. And again, there's that name again, Alexander Callens. Doing it on both ends, on the defensive side and also on the attacking side. But yeah, this is definitely not great for Sean Johnson, and especially his chances in terms of being a U.S. men's national team starting goalkeeper in the World Cup, because again, he's been having some shaky performance, and this performance in this game, and especially in that moment, if he would have gave up that goal, it would have definitely took a big hit in terms of his chances to be a starting goalkeeper with the U.S. men's national team. There's no doubt he's still going to be in the World Cup's roster, but if there's a chance that he can maybe be starting in terms of the questionable goalkeeping position in that the U.S. men's national team seems to not talk as much as we talk about the striker position in that team. Yeah, that would not be, of course, good for him. But, he kind of got bailed out because Callens make a goal line save. But I thought after a slow start for the Red Bulls, they started getting back into this game, and they were looking to try to get themselves the equalizer. But instead, NYCFC were able to get the second goal. It's Santi Rodriguez scoring for Pereira and Martins to make it 2-0 in favor of NYCFC. Then there was a shout for a penalty for NYCFC, but instead, it looks like this actually happened outside the box, and there was like a foul that happened outside the box. Morales then blasted high on the free kick, and then Castro's Jr. shot was deflected and it goes wide. But then in the 38th minute, the Red Bulls thought that they got one back, as Manuel looked like he scored his first career MLS goal, but VAR basically disallowed that goal for offside, and I think in the end that was the correct call. I think he was just in an offside position. But I also thought there was warning sign for NYCFC, because as much as they have the 2-0 lead, and in terms of the balance of play, I think they have been the better side. The Red Bulls were looking to try to get one back and trying to make this game interesting, but we do head to halftime with NYCFC leading 2-0 over their intercity rival. Now in the second half, Clark would blast it high after Manuel trying to go around Johnson there. But I thought overall it's been a scrappy second half in this game, and I think that kind of favored NYCFC because when you're leading in a game, you want to make the game scrappy and you want to frustrate your opposition. And the Red Bulls were definitely frustrated with them not creating a lot of chances. Though they did have a chance in the 70th minute when Long heads it wide on the header before Fernandez blasted high from close range. And again, the Red Bulls, they were pressing again to try to get one back. NYCFC were looking to trying to seize out this 2-0 win. In fact, they actually had the last chance of this New York derby as Morales trying to put the cherry on the top for NYCFC in the derby, but instead he was denied by Carlos Cornell. But yeah, in the end, NYCFC with a big victory, back-to-back victory after they gone through the stretch where they lost 8 out of their last 9 games. But shots in this one, 9 shots compared to 5 that NYCFC had, 3 shots on goal compared to 1 that the Red Bulls had, 5 shots off target compared to 2 that NYCFC had, no shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Red Bulls had, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to the 44% possession that the Red Bulls had. So not a lot of chances in this New York derby, definitely not one of the more entertaining game or one of the more entertaining derby we have seen before between these two rivals. But NYCFC wouldn't care, and because they just got a big win in this one, and that you just kind of had a feeling that it feels like we're starting to see something similar to what we saw last year when NYCFC went all the way and won MLS Cup. We remember how last year NYCFC had that cold stretch with about a month to go, and then they got a couple of big wins, and all of a sudden they got themselves hot and head into the playoffs because of that. Started to see the same thing that could happen, and if that is the case, then yeah, watch out. NYCFC can definitely be a team that could threaten. I mean, there's definitely enough talent on this team to really go on another deep playoff run, and we'll see whether or not if that is the case. But for the New York Red Bulls, yeah, this is definitely concerning. And again, this just is a good example of why Red Bulls fans, even though they're happy the fact that they made it to the playoffs, they're going to point this game out as a reason why they're not that confident that this team is going to go deep, because in a big game like this, if you want to go all the way to MLS Cup and you need to beat the best of the best, you need to of course step up in this game and get big 3 points, and the Red Bulls weren't able to do so, and we'll see whether they can bounce back in the next game. But that being said, moving on in the next match, we got Atlanta versus the Philadelphia Union. So this is probably the first time in a long time that the Union was actually kept out on the score sheet. Well, actually, I wouldn't say a long time, because didn't they? I was thinking in that game between the Union and FC Cincinnati that I think they did score a goal in that one. I think the last time that the Union got shut out was against FC Dallas, because I think, if I remember, Dallas actually got a 1-0 win against the Union. But this has been a team that's been a free scoring team, and it's not often you see this team had a bad performance, and this was definitely one of those, because I think this was probably one of the worst performances that the Union had put this season. And yet, guess who is in goal that once again bailed them out because of that performance? Oh yeah, that's right, it's Andre Blake. And that, how many times I've said throughout this season, and really these past couple of years, of Andre Blake single-handedly stealing points for the Philadelphia Union on the road, and he did it again. As Atlanta, they would definitely feel like they should have got all 3 points, and that if they do miss the playoffs in this season, they're gonna look back at this performance as one that if they could have got all 3 points, then things could have changed. Though in the first 17 minutes, there was nothing happened in this game. 0 shots throughout the first 17 minutes. In fact, the first shot didn't come until the 19th minute when Peralta heads it wide there. I mean, Peralta, fresh off of a hat trick that he had a couple of games ago, he's going to be a threat in the air. Amada then blasts one just wide in the 20th minute, and Atlanta, fighting for their playoff home. They were pressing to get the opening goal, though Carranza did had the first chance for the Union in the 27th minute, but he puts it wide from close range. Little did we know that that's one of the rare chances that the Union would get throughout this game as we head into halftime scoreless between both of these teams. And this is where in the second half when Atlanta really took over this game. Mata had a shot from long range that was deflected and it goes wide, and then Blake would deny Lennon, but Dom Dwyer had a chance on the rebound to put it in, but unfortunately, as he basically shoot this one on the rebound, it was blocked off the line, and then there was some chaos that was resuming in the Union box where The Union was trying their best to clear their lines there, which eventually they did. But yeah, they definitely let that ball dangling in the box for too long, and they're very lucky the fact that there was no Atlanta United player able to slot in home, as there was just chaos in the box. But there was no doubt that Atlanta, in a must-win game, they were putting the pressure to get the opener. They looked to try to get the opening goal in the second half. Amada had a chance again in the 59th minute, but he struck one right to Blake before Araujo puts it high from long range, and then Lennon would hit one right to Blake in the 65th minute, and then Blake would deny Mosquera from about 17 yards out, and that was a great save. I mean, Mosquera really stinging this one, and Andre Blake just single-handedly make a great outstretching save out of that. And again, just once again, he was not going to give up a goal, Andre Blake. Like, he was once again a wall, and we see this happen many times before, not just this season, but really ever since he's becoming a Philadelphia Union player. And in the 74th minute, Sejdic was the closest one to get the opener for Atlanta, as he actually hit off the post, but the play was recycled, and Sosa had a chance to score as the play was recycled, but he blasted that one high, and will poor finishing potentially cost Atlanta season. I mean, as I mentioned, even though I know in theory this should be a good point for Atlanta, because getting points against the Philadelphia Union this season, whether at home and on the road, has been a rarity, especially throughout the second half of the season. But again, this was a game that they really dominate in the second half, and these poor finishing, and also Andre Blake just single-handedly turned into Manuel Neuer in this game, is the reason why we're still scoreless, and that again, Atlanta, they might look back at this game as one of the reasons why they didn't make it to the playoffs, if that is the case. But in the first minute of stoppage time, Blake, again, we already saw him make some great saves. He made another good one here, absolutely robbing Joseph Martinez from a point-blank range. And how many times I've also said this season, a couple of years ago, if Joseph Martinez was in that spot, he would put that one into the back of the net. And this is not to discredit Blake of making this incredible save, but Martinez, with the way that he has his goal scoring instinct, and he still does. I mean, he has scored a couple of goals coming off the bench, but yeah, that's one that he definitely wanted to have back, and is going to be one that he's going to be thinking about that should have gone in. And then he had another chance in the 7 minute of stoppage time, as he was trying to hit one off the volley, but unfortunately that one was wide, and the full-time whistle was blown after that opportunity was missed for Atlanta. And yeah, in the end, despite the fact that Atlanta really blitzed the Union in this one, it ends in a scoreless draw. And the shots in this one heavily in favor of Atlanta in this one. 16 shots compared to just 5 that the Union has. And actually, that's a 6 right there, even though I know it looks like a 0. Atlanta did have some shots on goal. I mean, again, Blake, he made some incredible save in this one. But yeah, 6 shots on goal compared to none that the Union has. 3 shots off target for the 7 that Atlanta has. 3 shots that was blocked for the 2 that the Union has. And possession-wise, 60% possession compared to the 40% possession that the Union has in this game. And the only thing that I will also say that's kind of bad news for the Union in this one is that they did lose that grip in terms of the Supporters' Shield race. And as I mentioned earlier in the Sunday review, with LAFC getting the win, that means that now LAFC find themselves controlling their own destiny once again in the Supporters' Shield race. And not to mention, if we do have a situation, there's the tiebreaker between the Union and LAFC, LAFC would get the tiebreaker because they actually got more wins than the Philadelphia Union so far this season. But overall, it was a great game to watch. One of those 0-0 draw where was really because of either one of the goalkeeper making an incredible save, or a situation where Atlanta was just not clinical enough in this game. And again, we'll see whether or not they don't make the playoffs, if this is going to be one of the many games that they're going to regret that they should have had 3 points to make it into the playoffs. But that being said, moving on in the next match, and speaking of another team that potentially could not make it to the playoffs this season, it's the New England Revolution. And I said it in the last game against the Houston Dynamo, in that game where it was just such a soul-crushing loss by the refs. Even though they weren't out of it after that game, I wouldn't blame a lot of refs fans. Would say that they're pretty much out of it and that the season is over. This one probably is maybe close to the final nail in the coffin, because in a must-win game in this one at home against Montreal, a place the New England, has kind of had some mixed resort this season at home, but for the most part, they've been pretty good at home, and they don't get it done because Montreal, we know that that this team has been a very good road team, and they've been red hot on the road, winning 5 in a row. It's now 6 in a row after this 1-0 win that they had against the Revs. Though early on, the Revs did have some opportunity as By curls it just wide from long range after a bad giveaway there from Montreal. Heel then blasted high from close range, and I thought it was a good start for the Revs. I mean, they were pushing to try to get the opening goal in a must-win game. Breza would then deny Bo from close range before Wanyama would puts it wide from close. That was really one of the first opportunity that Montreal has in the first half. But we do head to halftime with the score being scoreless in this one. Now, in the second half, and 1 minute into the second half, it looks like the ref got the opening goal as Justin Rednix actually puts it into the back of the net. The problem is he was in an offside position, so that goal was rightfully disallowed for offside. But again, I thought despite the fact that they had that big opportunity to get the opening goal, that was really kind of it for the beginning part of the second half, as chances were few in between for both of these teams. And even though the Revs were still controlling in this game, it's got to be frustrated, the fact that you're controlling this game, but you're unable to create those chances to get that elusive goal to take the lead in this one. And as the game goes on, I thought this is when Montreal really kind of grow into the game. In fact, they actually forced Petrovic to make a great save as he robbed Kyoto there from point blank, though that wouldn't have counted because the flag did went up. There was then a huge shout for a penalty for Montreal, but Mihajlovic actually got a yellow for simulation. Now, when I saw on the replay, I think this probably should have been a penalty. I mean, you definitely saw that there was some contact that Mihajlovic fell. I don't think that should have been a yellow for simulation. I mean, I know this year the league has been taking it more serious, and Pro has heavily emphasized in terms of players just dive in the box and they will get a yellow card and also get fined by the disciplinary committee because of embellishment. But I don't think that was the case, and that could have been easily a penalty for Montreal. But the good news is that controversial play was kind of all forgotten because they would score just 2 minutes later, as Alistair Johnston would score from Kyoto and Mihajlovic to make it 1-0 in favor of Montreal. And they were not done, Montreal, because they were pressing to try to get that second goal. Wanyama trying to make it 2, but hits it high on the free kick. And then Petrovic has to tip Kyoto shots over, and Montreal, they were looking to drive the dagger in New England's heart. Like, they were really pushing to get that second goal, and I just feel like that goal that New England gave up, it really kind of just, like, you can see that this team was completely devastated, and that the heads will once again drop for this team. Like, they knew that now that the belief of them potentially make the playoffs is gone with them down 1-0, and that also kind of questioned in terms of the mentality of this team, of the fact that, again, just like the game against Houston, in one that it looked like they had a chance to get all 3 points, they just never able to do so. And in this game, they play well for majority part of this one, but then as soon as that goal went in, you just seen that it seems like these players just kind of lost their belief that they are going to come back to win this one. In the second minute of stoppage time, Petrovic did deny Kyoto from close range, and in the end, despite the fact that Montreal didn't get that second goal to kill the game off, it didn't really matter because New England really didn't fret. I think ever since they went down 1-0 in this one, as in the end, Montreal gets their 6th straight row win this season by winning 1-0 in this one. And the shots in this one, 10 shots compared to 18 that Montreal has. Both teams had 3 shots on goal, 10 shots off target for the 6 that New England has, 5 shots that was blocked for the 1 that New England has, and possession-wise, 60% possession compared to the 40% possession that New England has in this game. And again, for the Revs, I said it before earlier, I think this team it looks like they're going to be missing the playoffs, because you can't tell me a team that goes down 1-0 in a must-win game like that and just completely gave up is a team that looked like could bounce back and in their final 2 games getting wins and also getting some help from other team to get themselves into the playoff race. And I think also when I do a video talk about some of the most disappointing team this season after the regular season over, New England is definitely going to be a prime target. And I know some Revs fan will point out that the Booksaw transfer definitely hurt them in terms of the number 9 spot, and in some way, yes, I think losing Booksaw was definitely huge, because the guy that was supposed to replace him in Veroni, he's been kind of not only underwhelming but pretty much been a non-factor ever since he come for the Revs. And that but still, at the end of the day, I think this is a team that, you know, they had their opportunity throughout the season to get crucial wins, and that, again, it just feels like this whole season, as I mentioned many times, in terms of just mentioned comparing them with them being Sisyphus pushing the rock to trying to go over the top, and they just never able to do so because, you know, they find themselves just trying to get above the red line for a long time and never did, and now they find themselves potentially eliminated after this was supposed to be the season that they would go all in and really make an MLS Cup run. But that could be different for Montreal, and again, for Montreal, you know, again, I don't know if these road wins, you know, even though they're now secured themselves in second place, and now they have started to become the best road team in the league, at least in these last 6 games. You know, with them having a lot of home games for these playoff games, I don't know, will that actually help their chances in terms of really going deep. But these performances that they've been put under Wilfried Nancy has been very impressive, and that they've been on a very good run of form. And when you're in a good run of form heading into the playoffs, that is definitely a recipe for success to try to go deep into the playoffs, and we'll see if that is the case for Montreal. But moving on, in the next match, we got Orlando versus Toronto FC, and for Orlando, it seems like that cup hangover is finally over because they put an emphatic performance in this one against Toronto FC, so much that they actually won 4-0 in this one against TFC. And for TFC, you know, we talk about them fighting their chances in terms of the playoffs throughout the whole season, especially after they got the likes of Insigne and Bernardeschi in this team, and that it seems like for the first couple of games ever since they made their debut, looked like this team was going to go somewhere, but then the defense kind of let them down, and that, yeah, the defense once again let them down in this game, and in a big way, because in the first half, Orlando almost got themselves the opening goal as Angulo tried to score a half volley, but it was deflected wide. But eventually Orlando did get the opening goal as Facundo Torres would score from Carlos to make it 1-0 in favor of Orlando City. And I'll tell you what, Facundo Torres, he has been started to be a guy that you know, I haven't been giving enough credit. I mean, I know early this season there's been a lot of criticism with the way that he has not lived up to the price tag that Orlando City has paid, but recently he has definitely lived up. He's been a goal scorer for this team, and has worked his tail off throughout this second half of the season, and it's not surprised that he gets himself on the score sheet again here and give Orlando City a 1-0 lead. Though Insigne looked to try to equalize for Toronto, but that one goes high, and then Angulo with fires it wide, and again it's been mostly Orlando throughout the first 15 minutes of this game, and Toronto, they just look lost on the defensive end, and like the last game, just all over the place in the defensive end, giving just so much space for Orlando City to work with. And it shouldn't be a big surprise that second goal didn't come very very late in this one, with TFC being all over the place in the defensive end, because he came in the 23rd minute as Arjun Kara would score from Pereira to make it 2-0 in favor of Orlando City. And for Kara, that has to feel good because he's been kind of going through a bit of a goal drought, but finally getting himself back on the score sheet and give Orlando City a 2-0 lead. And it could have been 3-0 if Juan didn't blast it wide from close range before Bernardeschi had a rare opportunity for TFC in the 35th minute, but he crossed that one wide. And in the post, denying Torres his second goal there in the 41st minute. And in a mostly lopsided first half in favor of Orlando City, they take a 2-0 lead heading into the second half. And in the second half, it was pretty much the same thing. I mean, this game got so ugly where I kind of just stopped keeping in track of these games because, you know, there were definitely a lot of games that was on at the same time. So whenever there's kind of a blowout game, that's when I know that, yeah, I don't really need to pay too much attention to it, which is why I didn't really write as much notes in this game. And you're going to also notice with some of these games that was a blowout where I just didn't really write a lot of notes because there's really no point kind of watching and keeping an eye. Well, I was still keeping an eye on it, but there was no point just kind of really keeping an eye on it when there's other games that has playoff implication that are looking very interesting. So that being said, you know, in the second half, as I mentioned, Orlando really put this game. Well, they already put this game long to bed before, but this is when they really started to extend their advantage. As in the 46th minute, McNaughton would score an own goal there to make it 3-0 in favor of Orlando City, because of course with the way that TFC is all over in their defensive end, one of their defenders unfortunately scored an own goal, and this of course was unfortunate for McNaughton, but also just summarized TFC defense that had just single-handedly cost the playoff chances down the stretch. Insigne then puts it wide from close range, and I thought TFC did start to kind of get back into this game, but I think that's largely due to the fact that Orlando kind of took their foot off the gas. I mean, at 3-0, I wouldn't blame them with the way that it seems like it's all over. I mean, I will say that if there is one thing maybe Orlando probably shouldn't have done in terms of putting the foot off the gas, is that maybe they did a little bit too early, because TFC does still have some dangerous player with the likes of Bernadeschi and Insigne. But again, when I look at how this game is and how Orlando really shut down both of these guys for the most part of the game, I didn't think Orlando was going to blow this 3-0 lead. Though Galese did head to deny Jimenez from long range in the 61st minute before Torres blasted wide from close range in the 78th. But then in the 85th minute, Orlando would make it number 4, and it's Tesha Akindele scoring from Angulo to make it 4-0 in favor of Orlando, because of course Tesha Akindele has that knack of scoring late goal, albeit this one, unlike how in the previous time where he has scored a couple of late goals to revitalize the cardiac cats that is Orlando City of getting late winner, this one was more of just an icing on the cake of what was a dominant performance that Orlando had against TFC. Galese then denied Jimenez from close range in the 88th minute before, in the first minute of stoppage time, Pereira tried to make it number 5, but he just puts it wide from close range. And yeah, in the end, Orlando with an impressive 4-0 victory to win against TFC and eliminated them from their playoff contention. But the shots in this one, 18 shots for the 11 that TFC had, 7 shots on goal for the 3 that TFC had, 7 shots off target for the 6 that TFC had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 2 that TFC has, and possession-wise, TFC, believe it or not, had more of the possession, 56% possession compared to the 44% possession that Orlando City has in this game. But it really doesn't matter because, again, Orlando was by far the better team by a country mile. And, for TFC, as I said, throughout the season, and really ever since the beginning of the season, I just had a feeling that the biggest downfall of this team is going to be the defense, because they didn't really bother investing it throughout the season, and it shouldn't be coming to no surprise that defense once again started to become bad throughout the season, and is probably one of the main culprit of why they would miss the playoffs. And also, it's not going to be surprised that when I do the moving forward series for TFC, literally the thing that I'll talk about they absolutely need to do this offseason is they need to figure out their back line that needs to sort it out, because there is no way the fact that even with the amount of talent that they have on the attacking end, if you don't have a defense, you're not going to go very far in this league. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the next 4 games that happen in terms of the 11-game Saturday action of match week number 31. So moving on, in the next game, we got Chicago versus Charlotte FC, and speaking of an embarrassing way to get eliminated, that was the case for the Chicago Fire in this game, where this game was basically a carbon copy of the game that they had against the Columbus Crew, where they got a 2-0 lead and looked like they were on their way to get 3 points and fight for another day in the playoff hole, and then they just imploded in the last 20 minutes of the game in a classic Chicago Fire fashion against Charlotte FC. Now, early on, as I said, things were still kind of happiness in the first half, as Pineda actually gets a goal just 3 minutes into this game to give the Fire a dream start in this one. But in the 5th minute, Charlotte actually had a big opportunity to get the equalizer as Slovenia denied Bronico from close range, but he did give up a rebound, which Schwiderski was there to try to tap it in, and for some reason, Schwiderski does not tap it in. In fact, he actually hits a weak shot right to Slovenia, and this kind of summarized the season that Karol Schwiderski has had for Charlotte FC, where, their main number 9 DP player, although he has been able to score goals this season, he still has looked nothing anywhere close to be a DP number 9, and that some of those times when he, of course, had big opportunity to finish in a game, he wasn't able to do so, and this is an example of it. Though I will say that Schwiderski would kind of make up for it in a big way, especially in the second half. Though Jones did head it high from close range in the 12 minutes, as I thought Charlotte was looking to try to get themselves the equalizer. and they don't, because in the 30th minute, Jean Durant would score from Sekulic and Gutierrez. And by the way, at that point, they haven't got themselves the equalizer, but instead find themselves 2-0 down in the 30th minute. And yeah, the Fire was now leading 2-0 in this one. There was some tempers flare that was going on after Bronico basically shoved Durant to the ground there. And again, you know, with both of these teams, there's just so much at stake with the way that they're on the fringe of making the playoffs. You know, both of these teams are going to be fighting hard, and there's definitely going to be times where tempers could be flaring because of how competitive some of these games are, and especially with both of these teams trying to keep their faint playoff hopes alive. Though in the 40th minute, Jones would then struck the post on the header. I thought Derek Jones had a good game in this one, and probably were a little bit unlucky to not get a goal in this game. But yeah, we do head to halftime with the Fire leading 2-0, though that looked like it was going to change to being 2-1, as in the second half, Świderski looked like he redeemed himself in the 49th minute. But the goal was disallowed because it seems like Navarro was actually down in the box. And I put a question mark in that because this was a very controversial moment. And have Charlotte did not come back to win this game, I think this would have been a bigger talking point, where Navarro basically was down in the box and Świderski basically shoot this one from outside the range, and the ball goes into the back of the net. Now, originally, I thought maybe the reason why this goal was disallowed was maybe Navarro was shooting Slonina there, and that's why the goal, of course, was disallowed. But apparently, I think the only reason why I can think that goal is disallowed is because maybe the referee thought that there is a player down in the box, and that could intervene in terms of how the play goes, and that, of course, is exactly the case. But even then, you know, Navarro was nowhere near in terms of when Świderski hits that one. And when Świderski hits that shot, it was also nowhere near when Navarro was on the ground. So that was just really strange that VAR decided to disallow the goal. And that, again, you know, this would have been a bigger talking point. Have Charlotte did not come back into this game. And another example of why I'm just fearing the worst of how Pro is going to screw up some calls down the stretch, and especially now down the stretch and heading into the playoffs, where every call I feel like, you know, he's gonna have to be get right. And I know that sounds like something that seems too good to be true, but you know, as we get into the playoff race, I really just don't hope that we don't get into a point of the fact that there's going to be one game where we have to spend at least 2 or 3 minutes talking about a controversial call that could potentially cost a team in terms of their playoff chances. And knowing the fact that Pro has screwed up so many calls throughout the season, and even though I don't remember the last time where there was actually one really bogus call that really cost the team in a huge playoff game, I wouldn't be surprised it could happen. And if it does happen, I hope that will maybe spark some changes in terms of Pro and the usage of VAR, because this is absolutely unacceptable in terms of, so I have to talk about this every single week. And I know VAR is not perfect, and I know we won't get to a point where they are going to get the call absolutely right, but at least at the best, they can't be always inconsistent like that. It's just way too inconsistent in a way that I think eventually it is gonna get to a point where it could cost a team playoff chances because of a call that VAR used and basically called it wrong. Though, going back to this game in the 67th minute, after I did kind of a mini rant again about VAR usage in MLS, Slonina would deny Vargas from close range, and then this is where the collapse began. It started when Świderski finally redeemed himself and gets on the score sheet from Melenda and Vargas to make it 2-1 in favor of Chicago. Then the game was all tied up as Nuno Santos would score his first career MLS goal for Mackenzie Gaines and Kalina of all players. So anytime, of course, when the goalkeeper gets on the score sheet, you know it's potentially a Route 1 ball, and it was kind of the case in this one where Gaines got to it, and he plays the ball right to Santos to put it in. And all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, this game was all tied up at 2 apiece, and I just had a feeling the implosion is happening again for the Fire. And it was complete in the 6th minute of stoppage time, as Świderski would score for the second time tonight to make it 3-2 in favor of Charlotte. And I think the only thing that Świderski will be disappointed coming out of this game, which, you know, this might sound crazy because I don't think he's going to be disappointed after scoring such a crucial goal to keep Charlotte's season and their fringe playoff hopes alive is that he could have had a hat trick in this one if that goal that was disallowed in the 49th minute was wrongly disallowed. But the goal that he did score in the 6-minute stoppage time was all because of the fact that the Fire did not clear their lines. How many times we have said throughout this season, and really ever since I started doing a review, when you don't clear the ball out of the box, you are asking to basically get score on, and the Fire did not decide to do that. They basically let the ball dangling in the box. Wadetsky was there to pick it up, and he rifled that one to make it 3-2 in this game, and that was the final score in this one. As Charlotte, even though I know they still have a long shot in terms of making in the playoffs, you cannot say that they are going down. They are not going down without a fight, because this team is definitely showing its resilience. And again, I've said this before, even though if this team does not make it to the playoffs, I still think this has got to be considered a successful season for Charlotte. I mean, we know a lot expansion teams don't usually make it to the playoffs in the first season. It looks like Charlotte might be joining that list, but in terms of the season that Charlotte has been going through and the turmoil that they've been going through both on and off the pitch, this is considered to be a huge success and something that they can definitely build on in the off season. But as of now, they still have a chance in terms of making the playoffs, albeit it is still a fringe chance, and especially they do have to face against really tough team, including the team that is currently at the top of the East in the Philadelphia Union. But in terms of the shots in this one, 14 shots for both of these teams, 6 shots on goal for the 4 that the Fire has, 4 shots off target for the 6 that Charlotte has, 2 shots out that was blocked for the 6 that the Fire has, and possession-wise, 60% possession compared to the 40% possession that the Chicago Fire has in this game. And again, there is a very Fire way to get eliminated from the playoffs. This is definitely the way to do so, and I do not blame Fire fans to be absolutely fuming after not just this result with them getting an embarrassing loss of imploding in the last 20 minutes in this game, but just in general this season and really for the past couple of years of this Fire organization. I mean, and as a Quakes fan, I definitely get that the frustration some of these Fire fans had because again, it feels like even with the new regime that they're going through right now, it still hasn't changed the fact that this team is still being a bottom feeder year, and that playoff drought that they've been going through, which is right now the longest active in MLS season, looks like it's gonna continue now into I believe now the 6th season, because the last time the Fire made it to play was back in 2017. It didn't even go that far into the playoffs, getting knocked out in the first round. But that being said, moving on in the next match is Sporting KC versus Minnesota. So I talked about teams that get eliminated. Sporting KC was another team that got eliminated, but out of the 3 teams that got eliminated in terms of the Saturday action, Sporting KC was by far the most impressive one. Though I think this was not a big surprise, because as much as I did hear maybe some Loons fans was hoping the fact that they can get a point out of this game, have you not seen how Minnesota United play at Children's Mercy Park in the regular season? I mean, if you don't look at what happened in that 2020 Western Conference second round playoff, where that is really the only time that Minnesota United has been able to beat Sporting KC on the road, they have just absolutely stink it up every single time when they play Sporting KC on the road, no matter it's in the regular season or in the U.S. Open Cup. And there's also a reason why I've said in the preview that Sporting KC have absolutely dominated this meeting at Children's Mercy Park, or when it's being played at their home, because they outscore the Loons 15-1, and after this game make it 19-2 after getting an emphatic 4-1 win against Minnesota. And it looked like it was going to get ugly in the first half, because Dane Sinclair had to make an incredible save, robbing Agata from point blank, and already looking on, there was just zero defending from the Loons early in this game. And I'll tell you what, this team has to figure out their defensive issue. I mean, I know, after the injury to Dibasi is definitely a huge loss for that, but I just feel like, guys like Brent Coleman can maybe step in alongside with Box Home in that spot, and maybe kind of put in a makeshift defense that still be able to basically they withstand some of the good opposition. But that just have not happened. They have just flat out imploded in terms of the back line, just giving up 3 or 4 goals. And it started to look like the Minnesota United defense from the first two seasons where, yeah, don't remind me of watching this team in the first two seasons and how painful that was in terms of the defense imploding every single game. But as I said, Sporting KC, they had all the possession in this game, and early on I don't know if the Loons were trying to bunker and counter, or they decided to go row heave mode for the full 90 minute. I guess it's pretty much a combination of both because they were just getting absolute play out of the park in this one. Espinoza would then blast one from long range before Showery puts it wide on the header, and you just had a sense that eventually that opening goal for Sporting KC is going to come soon, and it did. In the 32nd minute, Boxo actually scored an own goal here for Sporting KC, which just kind of sums up the luck that Minnesota has had in these last couple of weeks. I mean, this team has just had so much bad luck, especially on the injury front. But here, this was because when Dane Sinclair trying to palm that one away, and Boxall unfortunately gets it in the way and put it into his own net. And, you know, there's really nothing I can say other than the fact that, you know, I can't really blame anybody for this. I can't blame Dane Sinclair of palming that one right to Boxall, because when he palmed that one away, it seems like he did get enough into it, and I can also blame Boxall too, because, you know, Boxall knew nothing about it. But again, this just sums up the last couple of weeks of the season for this Loons team, and that, again, this is a team that, with the way that they've been playing, even if they make it to the playoffs, it looks like it's going to be a repeat of last season. It's going to be most likely a first round exit. Though Dane Sinclair would then deny Showery as he cut down his shooting angle. It was all Sporting KC in this game, and it looked like this game not only was done, but it could get ugly, and it did. In the 42nd minute, Eric Tommy would score from Russell to make it 2-0 in favor of Sporting KC. And you know what? I'm actually kind of happy that Eric Tommy scored. It's not often I'm happy when the opposition score against my team, but I'm kind of happy in a way where, you know, not only the fact that kind of goes according to the script of how bad Minnesota has played in this game, but I feel like Eric Tommy deserved a goal. I mean, with the effort that he's been putting in for this team week in and week out, and have tried so hard to score a goal, it's got to be great to see those effort finally paid off and him finally getting on the score sheet. And another guy that also has been working hard, but also has been a clinical goal scorer, is William Agata, as he would get on the score sheet here from Sweat and Espinoza to make it 3-0 in favor of Sporting KC. Though this was one that I think Dane Sinclair should have done better, because Dane Sinclair didn't get there first. Agata was able to get to that one, and when you're a goalkeeper and you punch the ball away, you have to get there first, because if you don't get there first, it's not going to look good for you. And that's kind of the case with Dane Sinclair, where even though I know he has started to bounce back after some terrible performance that he had during August, there's still some times where there's been kind of some shaky performance from him, and that this was kind of an example of that, where I think it's definitely on him, the fact that he didn't get there first and punch that one away. But that being said, you know, up to that point, it pretty much just summarized the fact that not only this game was long done, but it pretty much is one of the few times or where a game pretty much exactly replicate what the script is, which is Sporting KC absolutely dominated in the first half and deservedly were up 3-0 heading into the second half. Now, in the second half, Amaria actually went through on goal, but he missed wide there in the 51st minute. Minnesota, I thought they started well strong, but it really kind of doesn't matter because it's still 3-0 Sporting KC, and just like what I said in the Toronto versus Orlando City game, you know, it feels like the only reason why the team losing 3-0 they started doing well coming out of halftime is because the opposition started to take their foot off the gas. Though there was a chance to make it 4-0 when Dane Sinclair was able to deny Showery. But Shelton did have a chance on the rebound, but he blasted that one high because, you know, Kyrie Shelton, even though I know he did finally got a goal just a couple of games ago, he is still one of the most cursed number 9 in the league. But in the 57th minute, Minnesota did get one back when Mender Garcia was able to score from Lawrence to make it 3-1 in this one. And this is actually his first career MLS goal, and a goal that I think it's been long coming. I mean, Mender Garcia, as much as I know, the only thing that frustrates me about him is that, you know, even though he gets into good position, he tends to be very sloppy in terms of his finishing. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a certain guy called Angelino Rodriguez that Minnesota had as a DP a couple of years ago. But, you know, it's good that he finally got himself a goal here, and let's just hope maybe this is kind of a beginning of good thing, because there is definitely potential that he could be a good player, and especially a good player on the wing too, because he is a very, very fast player. Like, there's been times where when we give the ball to him, he basically just blow by fullback like it's nothing, and that I think that's going to be a key in terms of this Loons attack down the stretch. Then there was a shout for a penalty for Sporting KC that was not given, and like the TFC versus Orlando City game, I wasn't really paying too much attention up to this point, because as I'll mention in these next two games have a lot to say in terms of the Loons playoff chances, and also potentially getting a home game at Allianz Field. But in the 81st minute, Agata would get on the score sheet for the second time, as he scored from Showley and Tommy to make it 4-1 in favor of Sporting KC. And I also thought that the Loons backline just stopped playing. I mean, that goal that they conceded was some of the most heinous defending I've seen from this team in a long time. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the first two seasons, where just no pressure whatsoever on the defensive end, and guys just kind of jogging back and watch that one goes into the back of the net. And again, it just sums up of just another bad day in the office for this team, and another horror show that they had against Sporting KC on the road, losing 4-1 in this one. And the shots in this one, 14 shots for the 7 that Minnesota has, 2 shots on goal for the 8 that Sporting KC had, 4 shots off target for the 3 that Minnesota has. Both teams had 2 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that Minnesota has in this game. And I guess the only good news I can say about the Loons coming out of this game is that at least they have two weeks to prepare for their next game, because, you know, another thing I would say about this game is that they just look like they're absolutely exhausted. And, you know, yes, they are playing their third game in 7 days, and it's not easy to try to find that energy in this one when you play so many games. But at the same time, you know, that there should be no excuse, because there's teams that have played around that stretch and they still look very good. And that, again, they have 2 weeks to figure this out. In the next game against the Quakes on the road, which of course will be at that game, I'm really hoping I'm seeing a better performance, especially for this defense. I mean, the attack is not something that I'm worried, because I think the attack has been pretty good, and I thought in this game they showed some good moment, especially in the second half. But it's the defense that I'm really concerned about. And again, that DeBossi loss, that seems like pretty much ended any chances of this team going deep into the playoffs, which is also a reason why, just like Toronto FC, this is a team that's got to prioritize in terms of needing some defensive help in the offseason, because, you know, when you look at this back line, I talked about in the beginning of the season, it has started to age badly, and that you know, they don't get some defensive help this offseason, it doesn't matter how good their attack is. You're not going to go very far in this league if you have a bad defense and give up like 3 or 4 goals every single game. But that being said, moving on in the next match, we got Austin versus Nashville SC. So like I said, you know, between these two games that is kicking off about 30 minutes apart, I was really focusing on both of these games because it had a lot to do with Minnesota Hope. And going back to this game also, you know, the other good news for the Loons is that there are a couple of teams that did kind of help them out in terms of their chances of making the playoffs and also getting a home playoff game. And one of those teams is Austin FC, who of course got a 1-1 draw against Nashville SC in this game, in a game where I feel like this was a playoff game. Like, the way that this game played out, it really looked like it was a playoff game, and I won't be surprised that both of these teams could meet each other in the playoff too, especially in the later round, because both of these teams were playing some good soccer at time. Though that might not be the case, at least in the first 26 minutes of this one, because for a highly anticipated attacking game, there was 0 shots throughout the first 20 minutes, as neither team really kind of break the ice on the attack. And again, that kind of is the reason why I say it's like a playoff game, where I feel like both of these teams was just kind of feeling each other out, because they know it's such a big game between both of these teams that can change how the compression of the playoffs, and also even the MVP race, because, you know, we talk about this is another chance where we see Hani Mukhtar versus Sebastian Driussi in the MVP race. And even though both of them gets on the score sheet, I would say that Mukhtar maybe have won the battle between the two MVP front runner of who is going to win the Landon Donovan Most Valuable Player award this season. And also, by the way, you know, besides the fact that there was no shots for the first 20 minutes, we did get some in-stadium experience, as there was no commentary and just game sound. And, you know, sometimes I actually like that. I actually like the fact that there was no commentary and we just get some raw experience because it just kind of feels like you're there when you have no commentary and you're just listening to the vibe, and especially with the way that I've mentioned many times, Q2 Stadium is probably one of the stadium I really want to go because I want to experience that atmosphere that always brings it every week. Yeah, it was definitely refreshing, and that again, it kind of almost made me feel like I was there with how much of a party vibe those Austin fans provided in the first couple of minutes. But eventually they did fix it. They did go into the Nashville TV feed when they found out the Austin TV feed didn't have any commentator, and it feels like Adrian Healy and Michael Luhu might have decided to take a week off, which I think at least for some fans that might be a relief, because I've heard a lot of people say that they have not done very well this season, and I kind of had to agree with them because as much as I do like Adrian Healy, I mean, yeah, it just feels like his commentating skill has really gone downhill ever since he's with Austin FC. Sounds more kind of Homer than doing his time with ESPN in his national televising time. And then Michael Lahoud, he's also kind of inconsistent. There's been times where I think his analysis sounds very Homerish and kind of sounds kind of a little bit out of it and doesn't make any sense. But that being said, as I mentioned, moving forward to the 26th minute, we finally had the first shot of the game as Sapon hits it high there. I mean, CJ Sapon just cannot buy a goal right now. Like, you talk about a guy that is one of the most cursed striker in the league and belong in that cursed number 9 club. CJ Sapon is in that list. I mean, he has not scored a goal since May, and he is going through a long dry spell right now because of that. And also kind of explains why he is definitely lacking confidence, because he had another opportunity in the 27th minute as he tried to slice it in on the doorstep of goal, but he mishits that one. Leal then blasted high from long range as we head to halftime, scoreless between both of these teams in the first half. That, it did kind of eventually picked up, but there was still not a lot of chances. That changed, at least in the beginning of the second half. And again, it does feel like a playoff game because, in the playoff game like this between two good teams, the first couple of minutes is going to be a little bit slow as both of these teams feel each other out. But as the game goes on, chances is going to come. And boy, did chances start to come in the second half. As in the 48th minute, Valencia actually hits one just wide before Mukhtar fired one high from long range. McCarty then struck one that Stuver actually tipped it over the post in the 52nd minute. And I mean, unlike the first half, there's been some golden opportunity for both of these teams getting the opener, as it feels like both of these teams realize that, yeah, let's go for that opening goal and look for that crucial goal to really potentially dictate this huge game, and that they can have a chance to get all 3 points. Though in the 53rd minute, Lovitz did clear Romania header off the line there, and that's actually a pivotal moment for Nashville SC, because just 3 minutes later, they would win themselves a penalty after Gallagher brought down Mukhtar in the box, which Mukhtar, of course, won the penalty. He takes the penalty and unsurprisingly slots it into the back of the net to give Nashville a 1-0 lead. Though that lead didn't last long, though, because after Finley puts it high into the side netting in the 61st minute, here comes the other MVP candidate in the goal scoring chart, because you knew that Sebastian Driussi has to do something. Like, so far when he go head to head to Mukhtar, he has definitely not won that conversation. And like I said, I don't think he kind of won the battle even with the goal here. But still, he did get on the score sheet here from Gite and Fagundes to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And then the game really started to swing wide open. Like, this is what kind of what I expected, because I know Austin likes to play an open game, and also knowing the fact that Nashville is also a team that likes to play an open game and play on the transitional attack. I was expecting this to be a high scoring game, and that I was also expecting there was going to be a lot of chances in this, but really the only other chance I can remember was Gite hits one straight to Stuver or not straight to Stuver, I'm sorry, but straight to Willis. Let me just change that here, because he didn't actually try to score an own goal here on his keeper, but it's more like he's trying to hits it straight to Willis, and really that was the only good chance that they had, because despite the fact that it was kind of open, the final ball was just not good enough for both of these teams, and in the end, It's a 1-1 draw in a game that we could definitely see it happen in the playoffs. And the shots of this one, 14 shots compared to 9 that Austin had. 3 shots on goal compared to 1 that Nashville has. Both teams had 4 shots off target. 2 shots that was blocked compared to 9 that Nashville has. And possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that Nashville has in this game. And again, signing up for another Austin versus Nashville game because I'm even though I know there was time at this game it was kind of a slog, that moment between the 45th all the way up to the 61st, or not the 61st, but all the way up to the 70th minute when the game was just wide open like that. Yeah, that is definitely some entertaining soccer that I watch, and it just kind of reminds you how, when you have a team like Austin playing some exciting soccer at time, and Nashville SC really started to look like they're back into good form after they went through a miserable stretch between July and August. Yeah, that's when you see such a great game like we saw in this one. And again, this is definitely one that I'm hoping that could be a playoff preview between these two teams deep in the Western Conference playoffs. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match, and speaking of playoffs, that seems like it's slipping away for RSL. So I talked about RSL and their struggle throughout this month, and also going back to August, where it's now, I think, 1 win in the last 7 games, and that the only win that they had was literally the game I attended, and a game that they probably would thank Minnesota United in terms of gifting them all 3 points by playing a B team, because if it wasn't for that one, RSL would just literally be in an implosion mode right now. Well, in some way they kind of are, because, in a game where they of course put all their eggs in their basket to get all 3 points after they decided to controversially put a B team in the game against Austin FC, they don't get that 3 points. In fact, they got themselves a loss. And this is also why I said in the preview why Pablo Mastroeni might have just made the same mistake that Adrian Heath made back in late August, where you don't punt the game away. Well, in Minnesota case, it kind of make a little bit sense because, they were kind of a little short-handed, but still, in every game like that, you don't just want to single-handedly punt the game away so that you can basically hoping that you can make that up when you have a home game the very next one. And it seems like RSL fell in the same trap again. Though early on, there was not much that was happening in the first 15 minutes, as there was 0 shots throughout that point. So this was another game. It was off to a bit of a slow start, but eventually it did pick up. In the 18th minute, Luna had the first shot of the game, but he crossed it just wide before he blasted wide from close range. I got to say, Diego Luna, he's really started to look like a guy that could have some good potential for this RSL team, because there's been times that he has been a player that has been very, very creative and have been a boss in that RSL midfield. And also, it's kind of not a big surprise that when he, of course, subbed off in this one alongside with Loftuson, this team basically started to go downhill. Though in the 30th minute, Vasquez did had Cincinnati first shot, but he puts it wide there. Well, Vasquez kind of had a quiet game in this one, and that gives credit to RSL defense shutting down what has been a very hot number 9 in this one. And I thought this was also a game that maybe Vasquez was going to have a breakout game, because after him getting omitted in that September roster for the U.S. men's national team, I thought he was going to be playing angry and just try to prove Greg Berhalter why exactly it was a mistake for him to left out in the September camp. But that being said, in the 35th minute, RSL gets the opening goal. It's Michael Chang scoring from Savarino and Loftuson to make it 1-0 in favor of RSL. But that lead looked like it was in jeopardy very soon, as a penalty was given to Cincinnati, or was it? Because they did go to VAR to see whether or not if Silver actually fouled Vasquez in the box, and in the end, that was not the case. And I think it was the right call, because that would have been a very soft penalty to be given. There was not a lot of contact in terms of it, and in the end, VAR did get the call right, and this game remains 1-0. Though Savarino trying to make it 2 as he hits one right to Salatano, but then in the 45th minute, Cincinnati gets the equalizer. It's Brenner scoring from Pau and Barrial to tie the game up at 1 apiece, but this probably shouldn't have happened if Zach McMath didn't just let this one in after basically it was a relatively weak shot that Brenner puts in, and he basically spills it into the back of the net. And Zach McMath, I think ever since David Ochoa has left this RSL team, he has not looked like the same goalkeeper that he in the beginning of the season. I feel like he has started to make more mistakes in recent games, and this was definitely one that, yeah, he does not want to look this one back. This was an awful goal that he conceded. You can even say it's a goalkeeping howler in many ways, and yeah, just like that, the game was tied up at 1 apiece. But like I said, in terms of when RSL got the opening goal, it looked like that goal was going to be short-lived when it looked like the other team was going to score again, because a penalty was given to RSL after Salentano brought down Cordova in the box. Now this time it was actually a penalty, and VAR didn't overturn it, and rightfully so. It was a penalty. I mean, this also came off of just a bad turnover there from FC Cincinnati. Well, actually, it's not just a bad turnover, but it was just a terrible back pass that I forgot which Cincinnati player that played that terrible back pass to Salentano, but it was just so terrible where Cordova was able to intercept it, and Salentano had no choice but bring him down in the box. But then in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, when Savarino had a chance to give RSL the lead again, he was unable to take advantage because Salentano was able to deny him from the spot. And there was that question whether or not if Salentano actually stayed on his lines, and I think in the end they got it right with the way that Salentano did stay on his line, because it was pretty close, but it was definitely not enough evidence, in my opinion, that this one is clear and obvious that Salentano did came off his lines. And yeah, what a big save that is for Roman Salentano. And he also had a massive game in this one too, almost trying to challenge his Andre Blake in this game, trying to steal FC Cincinnati a point, or even all 3 points, as what it turns out in this one. So we go to the second half in this one, and in the second half there was also another potential penalty that was given to Cincinnati, but just like in the first half, it was ruled out because VAR deemed that Powell was not brought down by Silva there. And yeah, I think again that seems like it was the right call, because there was really not a lot of contact in terms of that either. But McMath did deny Vasquez as he went through on goal in the 62nd minute. Then Salentano would deny Savarino from close range. And again, both teams, they were desperately looking for that next crucial goal. I mean, this is a game I mentioned, both of these teams are just above the red line. They're trying to get 3 points to get them some cushion. Both of these teams want to look for that next crucial goal. And that team that gets the next crucial goal is FC Cincinnati. It's Brenner who scored here to make it 2-1 in favor of FC Cincinnati, because of course Brenner has to score a big goal for Cincinnati. Like, between him and Vasquez has been a catalyst in terms of the goal scoring, and another example of why Brenner has probably, if you want to talk about a player that maybe have a comeback player of a kind of season, I think Brenner maybe be near the top of the candidate, because it was not long ago that this player looked like he was going to be out of FC Cincinnati, and he looked like he was a huge boss. But ever since he scored that goal to end his goal drought, he has not looked back. I mean, he has been just such a lethal goal scorer, and has worth every single penny that FC Cincinnati pay a hefty price to get him last season. But the game was still not over yet, because in the 80th minute, Salentano would deny Cordova from close range, and RSL was clearly in desperation mode. They were throwing the kitchen sink, as Cincinnati was just trying to hold on. In fact, in the 2nd minute of stoppage time, we almost saw a rare moment when Zach McMath actually heads one straight to Salentano on the header from the corner. I mean, if McMath actually scored that one, I mean, we would definitely not talk about the goalkeeping howler that he had in the beginning of the game, but more like the fact that this is one of the rare times we see a goalkeeper scoring a goal from the header from the corner. I mean, I have seen it before, especially in Europe this season, but man, what a big storyline that would be if McMath actually puts it in. And then Glad had an opportunity in the 5th minute of stoppage time, but he hits it just wide from close range. And yeah, in the end, despite the fact that RSL were pushing to get that equalizer to try to salvage a point, they don't do it. They drop all 3 points at American Field Park, or America First, or not America Field, America First Park. It's still gonna take time for me to get used to calling that one American First Field or Park instead of Rio Tinto Stadium for a long time. I mean, I might as well just say they drop points at the Riot, because I know RSL fans are still going to say that place is the Riot, even though it's not called Rio Tinto Stadium anymore. But the shots in this one was clearly in favor of RSL. 18 shots compared to 8 that FC Cincinnati has, 3 shots on goal compared to 8 that RSL had, 6 shots off target with the 4 that FC Cincinnati has, 1 shot that was blocked with the 4 that RSL had, and possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession that FC Cincinnati has. What a massive win this is for FC Cincinnati, and maybe this win might be enough for them to finally make history of getting their first ever playoff appearance and one of the biggest turnaround we have seen a team going from wooden spoon to basically making the playoffs in the very next year. But as I said, with the playoff chances of RSL, it is definitely look like it started to dim a little bit, because I already mentioned before, they don't control their playoff destiny with the way that the Galaxy still do so, even though they're 3 points below them, and that if the Galaxy win that game in hand, they actually owns the tiebreaker. Well, now the Galaxy actually did leapfrog them, because as I mentioned a little bit later, they got that big win against the Colorado Rapids, and only the fact that now RSL find themselves below the red line, but now they find themselves in a way where they're tied with the Galaxy, but they not only don't have the tiebreaker, but also they now have play one more game that the Galaxy has have. So yeah, again, for RSL, it seems like things are definitely looking a little bit grim, but I will say that there is good news for RSL. They do play the Galaxy soon, and oh boy, that game against the Galaxy in a couple of weeks, man, you talk about a playoff 6-pointer and maybe an early preview of the chaos that could create in Decision Day. That game is definitely going to be the case. And also, by the way, I think RSL also played the Portland Timbers on Decision Day, and that's guessing if the Timbers are still fighting for playoff position. There could also be a game that could be on national television, as it seems like MLS, for the last time before going to the Apple TV kind of deal, there's going to be those two national televised games that we're going to see on Decision Day. But that being said, I am now going to switch board and look at the last 3 games that's going to be happening in terms of the Saturday action of match week number 31. So moving on, in the next game, we got the Vancouver Whitecaps and the Seattle Sounders. Remember a couple of days ago I said the Sounders look like they're back in it after back-to-back wins, and it looks like their playoff hope is well and truly alive. And it looks like this is another classic Schmitzer kind of late second half resurgence that the Sounders are going through. Well, in this case, a very late second half resurgence. And in a game where they played the Whitecaps, and it's kind of a must-win game for them if they want to keep pace in the playoff hope. Not only the fact that they did not get a win in this one, but they dropped all 3 points to the Vancouver Whitecaps that don't look now. Vinny Sartini team, who looked like they were dead and buried a couple of weeks ago, all of a sudden seems to be getting back into the playoff race. Now, early on, Fry did deny Martins from close range, as I thought it was a choppy game to begin with. I mean, there was a couple of half chances, but neither trouble either goalkeeper. That changed in the 29th minute when Pedro Vite was able to score from Gall and Martins to give the Whitecaps a 1-0 lead. I mean, Pedro Vite have now scored back-to-back games. That definitely is a guy they didn't think was going to be a catalyst in terms of the goal scoring. Another guy that they didn't think was a catalyst in terms of the goal scoring is Julian Gresso, as he would score in the 37th minute to make it 2-0 in favor of the Whitecaps, and that was just an absolute banger. I mean, you could argue maybe Fry could have done better in terms of the fact that he did get a hand to that one, but my God, Gresso really hits this one well, and that, yeah, again, Fry just could not quite keep this one out. And notice how I also haven't put a lot of goal of the week question mark, and I probably should have put it for this one, because yeah, this is definitely going to be in contention for goal of the week, because it's not every day you see a player can hit a volley cleanly, and Gresso definitely did it in that play. And yeah, I mean, he gives the Whitecaps a 2-0 lead, as that is going to be the scoreline heading into the second half. And in the second half, it seems like the Sounders were desperate to try to get one back. Montero had a chance to do so, but he hits a one-hopper right to, not Fry, actually, to Hassel. Again, make the same mistake I did in the last game, writing the player hitting his own goalkeeper and almost scoring an own goal, when that, of course, is not the case. But as I said, urgency was showing for the Sounders, because they know that if they lose this game, then their playoff hope is definitely going to take a huge blow. Rui Diaz then puts it wide from close range before Nuhu hits one right to Hassel, because, of course, after Nuhu finally scored his first career MLS goal, you know he definitely wants to score another one. Though in the 61st minute, Fry did rob White and somehow saved that one off the line. And you notice I put somehow with a quotation mark, because this is where we get to the controversy in this game. And like the game between Chicago versus Charlotte, you know, at the end the day, a lot of people will remember this being a very controversial call because in the end it didn't kind of affect the result of it. But imagine it did. Because this one, not only the fact that on the replay, it was pretty clear that that ball actually crossed the line when Fry was able to ball it back, but it wasn't even close. Like, I know MLS doesn't have goal line technology, but you can even clearly see it on the TSN feed. They show the replay a couple of times. The ball clearly crossed the line. And the fact that VAR looked at it and didn't overturn that call. And again, this just shows you again the inconsistency of VAR and how I know they probably got away with it this week with these two games of controversial goals that was disallowed when it clearly shouldn't have been, didn't cause the result. But I'm going to go back what I said and reiterate what I said earlier of the fact that, this is going to eventually happen as we get into the last couple of weeks where I just have a feeling there's going to be one very bad call that's going to cost a team's playoff chances and will never hear the end about it. And that, once again, there's going to be an uproar in terms of the usage of VAR and how it's just absolutely disgraceful. And in some way, it is true because, again, it's not just that VAR usage in MLS is bad, but it's just inconsistency. We have seen some good call that is made, and we just have some downright bad calls that's being made, and this is another example of it. This should have been 3-0 in favor of Vancouver, and that Brian White should have clearly got on the score sheet with this ball clearly crossing the line there on the replay. But that being said, the Whitecaps, they seem like they were rejuvenated, and they seems like they're going to try to do it the hard way and score the third goal either way. Owusu had a chance to do so, and he actually struck the post from long range. I mean, if he actually puts that win, he would definitely rival Gresso in terms of scoring an absolute banger again. Leo Owusu, a center back, not known to score some long range shot. He definitely took a gamble to try to strike it from long range, and that gamble almost paid off with the way that it rings off the post. Then Nowinski actually cleared Bruin's header off the line. Again, the Sounders were still trying to get one back before Rusnak did blast it high from long range. But then in the 89th minute, the Sounders did finally get one back as Will Bruin would score from Montero and Rusnak to make it 2-1 in favor of the Whitecaps. And all of a sudden, it was butt-clinching time for those fans inside BC Place. Well, for about 80% of those fans, because I think I definitely saw some rave green in that BC Place crowd. But yeah, it was definitely butt-clinching time because, the Sounders are going to try to push to get that equalizer. Rowe had a chance to do so, but he hits one right to Hassel. But despite the fact that the Whitecaps have to soak a lot of pressure late in this game, they hold on and get a massive 2-1 win to beat the Seattle Sounders in this one. As the shots in this one, 15 shots for the 11 that Vancouver has, 5 shots on goal for the 4 that the Sounders had, 7 shots off target for the 4 that the Whitecaps had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 2 that the Whitecaps had, and possession-wise, 66% possession compared to 34% possession that the Whitecaps has in this game. And with this win, the Whitecaps are only 3 points below the red line. Now, granted, the team that they're chasing, which is the LA Galaxy, does have a game in hand, and that's kind of the case for a lot of these teams that is chasing the Galaxy right now because the Galaxy does have the game in hand. But, as I mentioned, the Galaxy, that game in hand is against the Quakes next week, and that, again, there's no guarantee that they can, of course, win that, considering they have a very poor record against the Quakes in the Cali Clasico when it's played at Stamford Stadium, and that the Whitecaps still do have some tough games going off. I believe they play Austin at home in the next game, and that's the last home game that they have. But again, consider a couple of weeks ago when they lost that game against the Colorado Rapids, where I basically wrote them off because that was a game that really decided both of these team fringe playoff hope. And the Whitecaps, to their credit, they're still fighting. They got some big win in this one. But for the Seattle Sounders, like I said, their playoff hope is definitely dim, or their playoff hope is definitely took a big blow after this game. Now, the good news is they still do have that game in hand over a lot of teams that is around them, and they play the same amount of game as the Galaxy, and I think they are, 5 points back in the standing, or 4 points back, something like that. But man, they need to win out if they want to make it to the playoffs. And when you look at this team, I mean, I thought that these last 2 games they were going to go through for a run, and it seems like that maybe is not the case, and that, again, just feels like maybe the inevitable would happen, that the Seattle Sounders, for the first time in their franchise history, is going to miss the playoffs, and that 13-year playoff streak looks like it's about to come to an end after this season. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match is the Galaxy and the Colorado Rapids. So one of the big winner in terms of this week's playoff race has to be the LA Galaxy, and this was definitely one of the best performances that the LA Galaxy have put this year, and that in some way they need to, because after that disastrous class that they had in the last game, they desperately need to turn things around and give this Galaxy fan base maybe some hope, and they did exactly that by winning 4-1 against the Colorado Rapids. Early on, Lewis did went through on goal, but he missed wide there in the 4th minute, before on the other end, Yarbrough was able to deny Delgado from close range. Then he denied Chicharito not once, but twice there in the 13th minute, but the pressure seems like it's coming for LA. Like, they were pushing to try to get the opening goal, and they do get it in the 23rd minute, as Bergman would score from Grandsir and Puig to give the Galaxy a 1-0 lead. I believe that's the first goal that Gaston Bergman has scored for the Galaxy. They didn't mention if that is his first career MLS goal, but I think it is the case. I mean, in some way, I kind of remember he scored a goal for the Galaxy, but either way, it's one of his first career MLS goal here, and that gives the Galaxy a 1-0 lead. Not long after, it was 2-0 in favor of the Galaxy, as Raheem Edwards would get on the score sheet from Caceres to make it 2-1 in favor, or not 2-1, 2-0 in favor of the Galaxy. And then it would be 3-0 in favor of the Galaxy, as Chicharito would get on the score sheet from Araujo and Puig, and the floodgates was definitely opening. Like, the Galaxy was definitely pouring on in this Rapids defense that basically decided to not show up in this game and know that they look like they are going to be down and out. Though Nicholson did have a rare opportunity for the Rapids to finish off the half, but he fires it high from long range, and we head to halftime with the Galaxy leading 3-0. It didn't take long before it was 4-0 in favor of the Galaxy, as Bergman would score from Puig to give the Galaxy a 4-0 lead. Price then blasted high from long range in the 54th minute before Costa had a free kick shot that was tipped over by Yarbrough. I mean, it was complete domination for the Galaxy. They were definitely not settled for 4 goals. They're trying to prove their fan base that, yeah, they still have that fighting spirit of in this playoff hunt and trying to get themselves sneak into the playoffs. But then in the 63rd minute, yeah, this was ugly. So basically, this all started with some tempers flare when Barrios and Grandsir kind of had choice words with each other after a challenge there. But instead of the fact that both of these players was having some choice word, the player that stole the headline in terms of this ugly tempers flare is Douglas Costa. And, we talk about this season with Douglas Costa, and there's times where he can easily lose his heads a little bit, and this was a clear example of that. There was absolutely no need for him to basically sprint about 20 yards out and completely shoulder barge Barrios to the ground. And not only the fact that he shoulder barge Barrios to the ground, but he even put his hands to the face of Gutierrez. Now, granted, Gutierrez basically did a classic South American move, and that is basically if you get any contact, just basically go down and hold your face like you've been basically scratching that. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit embarrassing for Felipe Gutierrez, but I guess maybe that's just a classic South American move there, and that I think that was maybe the one that gave Douglas Costa a straight red, because you can't put your hands in an opponent's face. That's hands to the face there. But I could argue that shoulder barge on Barrios is worthy of a red card too, because I don't know what was he thinking of basically shoulder barging Barrios there. And not to mention, it's a 4-0 lead for the LA Galaxy. Your team is leading 4-0. There is absolutely no need to get upset when your team is up by that big. And the Rapids are going to try to wrap up the Galaxy because they're probably frustrated with the performance that they put, and that again for Douglas Costa, just a moment of madness for him, and that not only he got sent off in this game, will be suspended for the Cali Clasico, which depending on who you ask, maybe some Galaxy fans will be happy and maybe some won't. I mean, I think some will, because Douglas Costa has as expected not panned out whatsoever for this Galaxy team, but some will also won't be happy because this was probably the best game that he has played in a Galaxy jersey, and then he basically did that. And again, not only the fact that he's going to miss the Cali Clasico, I won't be surprised Disco might suspend him for an additional game or two, and he might be done for this season, and maybe that might be the last time we see Douglas Costa in a Galaxy jersey. And if that is the case, that's probably the best way to sum up Douglas Costa and his tenure with the Galaxy. I mean, I predicted in the beginning of the season that I don't think this is going to work out. I mean, there's a lot of high risk, high reward in terms of the situation, and it's no surprise that, while Douglas Costa has scored some amazing free kick goal, he also has done some boneheaded play just like that, and that, yeah, I mean that play again just really sums up Costa time with the LA Galaxy, and that again, I wouldn't be surprised this might be the last time we see him in a Galaxy jersey. That was just such a stupid play that he made in that. And yeah, but in the 72nd minute, Yarbrough would deny Puig from long range before Yarbrough would commit a big mistake, and he kind of got away with this one because Jovic had an empty net to shoot there. And I think maybe the commentary kind of jinxed him a little bit because they were praising Dejan Jovic and how good he is whenever he comes off the bench. And again, I would definitely bet a lot for Jovic to put this one in, because with how good he is whenever he comes off the bench, he's going to put it away. So it was kind of a big surprise he wasn't able to put this one away despite having an empty net. And then in the first minute of stoppage time, the Rapids does get a consolation goal as Sam Nicholson gets on the score sheet. Always love to see Sam Nicholson get on the score sheet. Never forget his time with Minnesota United in the first two seasons. But again, it was more of just a consolation goal because in the end, the Galaxy with an impressive 4-1 win over the Rapids. And besides the Douglas Costa madness, this was basically a perfect game for the Galaxy. Shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 15 that the Rapids had, 12 shots on goal compared to 6 that the Rapids had. I mean, they were firing on all cylinder on the attack and putting a shooting spree in front of Yarbrough's goal. 4 shots off target for the 8 that the Rapids had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 1 that the Rapids had, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to the 48% possession that the Rapids has in this game. And, for the Colorado Rapids, I know they're mathematically not eliminated yet, but they're about to, because this kind of performance basically just put the end of what already is a very fringe playoff hope that they had. But for the LA Galaxy, as good as this win is, and I know Galaxy fans will definitely enjoy this, they're going to be asking the question whether they can do it again against the Quakes. And I think that is going to be the game, alongside with the game against RSL the very following week, that would decide the fate of this team. Because I'm pretty sure any Galaxy fans would not want their playoff fate to be decided in the final game of the season against the Houston Dynamo on the road, especially, they know how it feels on decision day and all the heartbreaks that they suffer, and not to mention they play against that team again that always gave them heartaches and have already caused them problems on decision day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these next 2 games are really just the game of the season and will really determine the Galaxy fate. And that, again, if they can play like this against the Quakes, then they definitely have a chance to win. But if they go back to being the Galaxy team like last game and just completely stink it up on the road, then yeah, there's a big question whether if they can still make it to the playoffs, even if they're in a comfortable position right now. But that being said, moving on in the next match, and speaking of the Quakes, so the Quakes, of course, they've already been eliminated as it was confirmed in that loss that they had against the Colorado Rapids. But despite being eliminated again coming into this game against FC Dallas, I thought this was a great game that the Quakes, of course, have played, and I think they were kind of unlucky not to win this game because, for most part of this game, they were by far the better team, and really the only goal they conceded was really just an unlucky goal for the Quakes to concede. Though early on in the 2nd minute, Kikanovic hits one into the side netting before in the 16th minute, Dallas would get the opening goal. It's O'Brien scoring from Areola and Farfine to give Dallas a 1-0 lead. Again, this is the goal that I talked about just a couple of seconds ago being very unlucky because it took a wicked deflection off a beast. And anytime when you're a defender and you deflect a shot and it goes into your own net trying to block it, it's got to suck because, you made a great defensive play trying to block it, but it kind of took a deflection and it goes into the back of net. But thankfully for the Quakes, that lead did not last long for Dallas because they got a penalty in the 22nd minute after Farfan handballed it into the box, which Abobisi stepped up and slots home the penalty. And the game was all tied up at 1 apiece, and he was going to try to go for his 2nd goal, but sliced it just wide on the free kick. And then Marie actually struck the post, and that momentum was all with the Quakes as they were looking to trying to get the lead before halftime, though Dallas did have the last opportunity before the half as Hara would blast it over on the volley, and we had to halftime tied at 1 apiece between these two teams. Now in the second half, Paz would deny Ebobisse from close range. Just another great game I think Jeremy Ebobisse had. And it's such a shame that it feels like it's kind of a wasted season for him, because as much as he has scored 16 goals this season, and we have not seen a player, maybe besides when Wando was at his prime, to be such a lethal goal scorer in the number 9 position, and that the season kind of is being wasted. That because of that, I still have to applaud the season that Jeremy Ebobisse has had, and that again, that move that the Quakes made last season to get him from the Portland Timbers, and the fact that they only got him for a relatively cheap price. I think it was only like $1 million general allocation money. Yeah, that move is definitely worth every single penny, and that Ebobisse has really looked like the Jeremy Ebobisse that we saw during his time for the Timbers. And now the only thing that I will say is get him some help, because I'm pretty sure for most part of this season it's really been him that has been carrying the low in terms of the goal scoring. Well, I'll find out when I do the moving forward series, taking a look at the amount of goals that the Quakes have scored, who contribute and who did not. But once again, it was a promising start for the Quakes as they were pushing to try to get the lead. K. Cow had a chance to do so, but he hits one straight to Paz. And then Nsambele actually had a shot that was deflected, and it just goes wide off the goal. So almost deja vu again for Dallas, almost scoring on a deflection goal. And then he had another chance, and this was even a better chance because he actually had a good look for about 10 yards out. And somehow, in some way, it was, I think, Nathan and Beeson kind of form a wall there, sliding down, and somehow block that one off the line. And it feels like the momentum was now with Dallas, and they were trying to get the lead back into this one, though that momentum was all come to a halt in the 83rd minute as Arriola would get himself sent off in this play. And yeah, this was definitely a sending off here. And this, again, you talk about some brain dead move that Douglas Costa made in this. This was also kind of a brain dead move by Paul Arriola. There was absolutely no need for him to basically intentionally use his hand and swipe the face of Montero. And that, in the age of VAR, even though if that's off the play, you're definitely risking yourself of getting a red card, because the camera are definitely watching, and the camera definitely caught Arriola doing that, and rightfully so. It's a straight red as Dallas was down to 10 men, which I was thinking maybe this is a chance for the Quakes to get the lead, and they did have a chance to do so in the 3rd minute of stoppage time as Tommy Thompson looked to score a goal also late, but just puts it high on the volley. But in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw between the Quakes and Dallas. And the shots in this one, 19 shots compared to 9 that Dallas had. Both teams had 3 shots on goal, 13 shots off target compared to 4 that Dallas had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Dallas had. And possession-wise, 55% possession compared to the 45% possession that FC Dallas had in this one. And, for the Quakes, I feel like, even though they're eliminated, they could be a big player in terms of the playoff race, because the next 3 games that they're going to be playing versus the Galaxy, versus Minnesota, and at the Seattle Sounders. Those are 3 teams that could potentially be fighting for their playoff lives. So yeah, they can definitely play that spoiler. Just don't do it when they play against Minnesota. Do it when they play against the Galaxy. Just don't do it when they play against the Loons in that Blues not Derby. And I'll be very happy about that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these next couple of games is, and then I'm pretty sure there's going to be some team that's going to be really rooting for the Quakes, even though they are eliminated. I mean, that's the beauty of the playoff race, of how, some of these teams that is eliminated, even though you think that their season is over, it kind of isn't, because for a lot of these teams, they're definitely rooting for them because of the playoff race that is going to be, and especially those teams that are playing against teams that are fighting for playoff chances. But either way, that is pretty much it for the review of all 11 of these games on Saturday. And like I said, man, what a week it was of MLS soccer that we have, and that, again, I'm very interested to see as we get into the next match week, which I believe it's going to be 32 or 33. Either way, we're getting to that crunch time period where we just I think for many teams there's only 2 games left in the season. Well, some has 3, but some of those games are either going to be makeup during the international break or in the days leading up to decision day. But man, with how tight the playoff standing is for both conference is and how tight the playoff race is. Again, I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier. This could be the craziest decision day we might see in league history. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.